We're starting off with our first panel discussion, and I would like to welcome back on the stage. She did her job perfectly the first time she was here, so we want to see her again. Ladies and gentlemen, representing the Commercialization Reactor Fund, welcome on the stage, Ilona Gulchak. Welcome, Ilona. Speaking of people returning to this stage, we're happy to see him again. He's the founder of the Radical Innovations Group, Dr. Krishnaswamy Sankaran. Krishna, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, and for the first time on this stage, where we want to see, she's a clean tech champion and an impact investor with a decade of experience. She leads Beamline, which is a successful clean tech accelerator. She's a partner at the Better Fund, Jana, Budkovskaya. All right, welcoming back on the stage, she's the chair of the board of the directors for the NATO Defense Innovation Accelerator for North Atlantic. Welcome on the stage, Barbara McQuinston. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And last but certainly not least, he's an expert in bridging the gap between business and technology. With a PhD in business administration and over 3 decades of experience in the information and communication technology industry, he has quite a unique perspective on digital transformation. And right now, he's the founder and chief of scientist at Puhu.NL. Let's welcome on the stage Mr. Ozgur Gungor. Ozgur, welcome. Ilona, take it away.
Thank you very much. Welcome to our panel discussion. We will be discussing today the dynamic landscape of deep tech startups and actually their endeavor in solving global challenges. That's a broad topic. Yeah, I'm sure you agree with me. But we will narrow it down to a very interesting aspect. So we all understand that startups are there to solve global challenges, let's say from healthcare topics to, let's say, global warming, from poverty to other issues that all we are facing nowadays and we will face in the future. But my idea here is whether this can be done in a sustainable way. Should we think not just that we solve the challenge, but how we do it, and whether this is done in a way that it is not harming us, not harming the planet, not harming the society. So that's the topic, and that's kind of the niche and the focus of this panel discussion. And my question, the first question to the distinguished panel will be, are there any frameworks, any models that startups can use, how they can integrate the concept of impact within their startup, how they develop, how they, let's say, approach formulating the vision, formulating the roadmap for them. So, and my first question comes first to Jana.
Thank you very much. And yes, I'm so happy to be here and so proud a little bit. Thank you. But yes, as being from Beamline, from the Clean Tech Fund and Accelerator, of course, we believe that clean tech today is not something self-standing somewhere in the corner, but it is already horizontal. So it means that if we talk about the deep tech, if we talk about some new ideas and innovations, it should be aligned with the clean tech. And according to the framework, there are a lot of them now, and we all know ESG, environment, social, and governance. We all know all other aspects, and we know the sustainable goals and so on and so forth. Yes, we know that they are not very compatible now for the startups, and especially scientists. When we talk about the new ideas and very breakthrough innovations, it's very hard to measure what is asked for ESG, for example. Yeah. But I'm very happy that a lot of deep tech accelerators, they understood that it is a need. There are investors and LPs who already ask for, please tell me how this, I don't know, new nanomaterial will influence the nature. So, for example, Catalyst is a very good example. They have created a very good impact platform, so they teach and guide the teams through the whole process, how they can measure it. The same in Beamline, we have our own ESG framework, but it's really, really adopted for the early stage startups. So there are something, but I think that only in cooperation with other players we can decide and we can agree. I really liked this Mrs. Innovation, how she said that when we want to achieve something, we need to agree about the terms. Maybe they're not standardized and we don't need to wait for it, but we need to agree what does it mean impact, what does it mean deep tech making the impact. Then we can measure it, then we talk about it, and then we can execute it.
All right, so Krishna, you have huge experience in ESG and huge experience in innovation. What's your take on, let's say, what kind of model and frameworks can startup use?
So I think from the point of view of ESG requirements for companies which are in the early stage of their life cycle, what we are expecting is at the basic some understanding of what these frameworks mean and what these frameworks do to their value add in the market space. We are not really pushing those metrics beyond the point of creating awareness and making sure that they are aware of the red flags. Because at a startup stage, it is already too overwhelming in terms of bringing the product to the next stage, doing validation, doing the investor buy-in, making the market fit, market product fit. There's so much things going on. So as an investor community, when we look at those early stages, it's important that the team, particularly the one which looks after the sustainability, environmental impact, social governance and things, they are aware of it, they are educated, they are informed. But once they go to a stage where bigger investments are going to happen, there is a level of commitment beyond just know-how, knowledge, right? It's about exhibiting. From an exhibition point of view, what we mean is documentation of data and enabling science-based backing of that data in terms of the impact. For example, let's say if you're talking about a technology that has an impact on soil or water, how much amount of data are there to back that up? Because, even with data, you cannot be sure that this is what it is, because science is, as we see as is going from one falsity to another falsity. Whatever has been proved truth has been proved not so today, and it's going forward, right? So data, as we know at that point of time, to back up whatever it is in a rigorous manner is expected. But once they go into a much more IPO stage or going forward, it becomes rather important for companies and also for investors. Hey, what? Are they really backing it? Are there a good governance in place? Are they following the norms, what is stipulated in the region? So to answer your question in a simple, crisp manner, at a startup stage, what we expect, know-how, awareness, clarity. If it makes sense.
And I would definitely agree with you that because lack of data at the ideation stage, let's say at the hypothesis stage, is the reality. So yeah, the awareness is something that is achievable at this stage, but it needs to be there. Yeah. Barbara, what's the approach in Jana and NATO Innovation Fund to
Well,
this
one of
topic?
the benefits of NATO is it's a united alliance of our democracies. And we've been looking at a lot of aspects of technology, startup companies, impact. We formed the Emergent and Disruptive Technologies Group. We have science and technologists from across all the nations, and these scientists have been putting together positions on the ethical use of the technology and the impact, ESG impact. And one of the things that Diana's focused on is to, again, like you're saying, the entrepreneur might not be aware of the total landscape that they need to do, what they need to grow into for their product based on where the market is. So having them in that accelerator position where they can learn more about that, understand what markets they want to get into, and then what it's going to take to do that, as well as having the mentors and the partnerships and the investors that as they grow, can grow with them in these areas that are so important. But looking at the impacts of the technology across the board and what it means from the ethical use of our democracies is very important for us at NATO.
Right. Ozgur, you've been in many roles, let's say, as a professor in the university, as an entrepreneur. And what's your take on how, let's say, the concept of impact is important for startups in the very beginning?
Well, that's a hard question, but I would like to take it from the perspective of United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, which is already there, saying that what we should be taking deep looking at and finding solutions for the whole problems that are addressed over there. As a deep tech atelier or deep tech technology providers, we need to think about these high-level goals and take them into the real life as many problems and their solutions with deep tech so that we can make an impact on human life. So one of these, for example, is good health. Let's say good health is too obvious, it's high level. But there are many sub-levels and tasks that we can address. We can find problems and we can work on the solutions. From good health, we can think about the social well-being of societies. It's another big impact area. So from there, we can also work on the data that is needed to be addressed. For the data, we need to implement many technologies to collect data properly and in an ethical way, and then understand the data to make an impact in social life. That's how I see as a professor, as an entrepreneur, and I see it's not an easy task, but we should be going from top to bottom as far as I can see.
But what I can see here, how the discussion developed so far, so I can see that some framework is still needed, yeah? The awareness is needed, and still, let's say, the top-down approach, it should be there. So it brings me to a kind of a conclusion that we still need to develop some kind of a model which we can translate to startups that they can use, because they are also lost. They are lost in the priorities, and one of the questions, again, connected to this is how they can prioritize the profitability, the growth issues, because this is something that is expected from them by the stakeholders, and this long-term impact and sustainability effect. How do you kind of handle these issues within Beamline, Jana?
Yes, as we are working with early stage and we guide the teams further, then again, we don't want to ask them and to create a burden about collecting the data. We know that the data is very complicated, and especially, as you mentioned, on the level of when they are just building their hypothesis, it's again, you put so much of effort to collect the data, but then you just throw it away. So that's why I was mentioning these tools, what we as the accelerators or the early stage funds are developing. And the idea of all these frameworks should be, in my opinion, is that when the startup is going through this process, they also can benefit by adding the value for their product, by understanding the flow of the development of the product, by understanding or sharpening the business model. So everything what we ask from the startup, not to, as you mentioned, really they need to go to the market. Is this a job to be done? So with these extra reports or extra asks, we need to support them. You know, everything should be designed for them to grow further. So that's why all these frameworks should be like this.
If you can say, let's say, what is the stage at which this can become more important, more vocal for startups, let's say from pre-seed, seed, Series A,
If you talk about the impact, I truly believe that it should be coming from the beginning. Okay. You know, it's your ground in your soul, and then you build up your science, your business, everything on understanding what is the sustainability goals, what is our nature, and why we should live not the last population on this planet.
Krishna, what's your take on that? What is the stage at which prioritizing impacts and sustainability can become more important?
So as I mentioned in the earlier point, in the early stages where they are going to an MVP, minimum viable product phase, I think for us it is not too much about the environmental impact, or awareness is important. They should not do something that will have later on consequences that we need to be worried about. So we inform them, we educate them, we kind of give them a kind of a crash course on things that they should be aware of, without too much emphasis on data collection and proving and other things. But the moment they come to a phase where we are seeing early stages of successes with the MVP, that they will go into a kind of a full IPO route, I think we start to make it more clear. In terms of framework, what I have been doing in our holdings, what we are working on, already early stage certifications that people go through as part of their training and development, because that's something that we make sure that they come out of their day-to-day stressful work of working on the product, make them also look into a part of the kind of certification. We have tried this model with some of the partnering institution, which gives a very high level 10 hours courses or 8-hour courses on ESG. What is the environmental impact one has to look into? Because every technology firm will have a different dimension of this, and data might be limited, data might not be available. So I think one has to not boil the ocean, but boil a good cup of tea and try to serve them in a proper way so that they understand the message and they are much more prepared. Because once they are going to an IPO stage, this is a mandatory requirement, especially in countries where it is becoming more and more, where investors are coming in. There's a question. See, for example, when I was in the consulting space where we are working with financial institutions which make big investments, they are very keen on their investment class assets ESG outcomes, in the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And they are very keen on that, because for them it is, forget about impact, it's a regulatory requirement that makes them feel that I need to tick this box. So they are becoming more and more aware of it. Whether they do it because of impact, I don't want to comment on that, but they do it because of regulatory requirement. I need to tick this box, so I need to know. The moment they focus on impact and drive it together, it will be much more powerful.
It's not like coming from the heart, as Jana was saying, I'm sure.
But I really believe that it will come from the heart.
I'm sure it will come, yeah. But what I can see, let's say, from our portfolio companies, even at the seed stage, when they raise Series A, it's really becoming more vocal, yeah, because more and more investors are requesting, let's say, how you measure your impact, let's say, what will be your emissions. Even if it's non-existent today, they still need to project. I understand the difficulty with data, with, let's say, making hypotheses, assumptions, but it's still already there. Yeah, and my question comes to Ozgur. Let's say you also have different types of businesses. How you integrate the concept of sustainability, let's say the impact that you are creating, because I know that it is important for you.
Yeah. Can I take it from a different ground to this point?
Sure.
Of those ideas from heart or impact and data, I was thinking about the academic definition of value proposition. So a value proposition for any business, whether it is coming from your heart or the data or the expectations of the potential customers, is the crucial point to start to initiate the impact, I believe. Because once you properly define it, then you can work on it, and then you can combine it to the necessities of the society and these sustainability goals, which seems to be in many ways touching to each other. Once you have the value proposition of your company or startup, which means that today it's the mission of why it exists, it delivers us the idea of the impact and how it should be delivered through different business models. So these are all connected with each other. As long as I see, for deep tech technology companies, these definitions should be very properly done in order to focus on the business, right business topics and goals to be successful. And for the success, probably there will be many ideas to talk about, but I see crucial point is the communication and integration with the societal bodies.
Ilona, may I just add, I very agree with you that this value is really what we need to stick for. And if we think about the deep tech, it means that the life cycle of this company is like at least 10 years. So today, if you don't think about the impact and the future of the planet, then how you can think about the value at all? So that's why I use this very romantic word of heart, but it should be like is the essence, like the base ground, how you start to develop something.
I definitely agree. It's heart and passion.
Yeah, yes, let's agree on these terms.
Barbara.
Yes. Well, you know, the framework, what is your goal? Your goal is for these companies to succeed in the market. And the market demand in the customers is looking at this. You as an individual and as part of that market and living on the planet are worried about our future and where we are. So how can we invest in these companies so that during their ideation stage, they can understand, you know, what they have to do? It's really in that, even before you get to a minimum viable product, when you're in your ideation stage, you really want to think about all the things you want to do and test and have to the best of your ability. But the scientist and the entrepreneur and the investor, the developer, is really the one that's going to be able to best think about this, about the impact of their technology. It's important, though, that they understand, as I said before, thinking about the community, the scientific community, the political community, and all of us who are pulling together for our future, and that they understand what they will have to do when they enter the market and respond to these things. But that's part of creating a strong business plan, looking specifically at their market entry points for their minimum viable product, and what kind of investment they will need to be successful in these areas. So to make the startup companies successful, you really have to invest in them in their ideation stage. You know, sometimes they're in the accelerator or even being able to experiment with their technology. Those are things that we oftentimes look at later seed or A stage, but we don't have that early stage investment that helps them really in that ideation period and also helps direct them so they understand, you know, the value of their IP, their value of the IP in different markets, and what it's really going to take for that market entry point and to attract that seed and A capital.
Krishna?
See, I think it's a provocative example, but I can tell you, for example, the metrics on which we are measuring them is also something that is very important. You know, for example, if you take energy, obviously, there's a lot of lobbying for green and renewable resources. But if you look at the last 50 years of technology development and deployment, if you look at the number of people being killed per kilowatt of energy being generated, wind and solar will be more than nuclear. I mean, at least wind is, data says wind has, the number of people killed, number of damages it has created for birds and other things. Wind per kilowatt of energy being generated is more than nuclear. And also local habitats being destroyed. If you look at, because we did a big deployment of solar panel in the Atacama Desert, the number of habitat, especially, desert tortoise, they don't have any other space to go. But still, solar is good. Solar is seen good, right? So, but it's like destroying habitat is also something one has to look into. But it's a provocative topic. But of course, people can make their own judgment. I think data is very important. But the data is also, you have to compare apples to apples. And in certain cases, in today's market space, as long as the regulation is not supporting you to make the right decision. For example, in Europe, still we don't have the right pricing of carbon. As long as that is not there, still people can do many things and say, you know what, I will buy credit or I will compensate, right? So I'm just throwing out this point here.
But I really like this provocative topic, yeah, because let's say maybe those businesses that were created in the past, they didn't think, let's say, about the impact that they will have in the future, yeah. So we can learn from these mistakes and we can kind of integrate something new into the business development, this impact concept, which I think is something that is inevitably here, yeah. So for instance, a startup developing a business model, the startup wants to integrate into the supply chain. For big, let's say, companies, there is a regulation already, yeah, this scope 1, 2, 3. So, and they will need to report on certain parameters to this big company that they wish to supply their product to.
Yeah.
So they should be prepared for that from the very beginning. So that's my point.
Yeah. No, I think, and also we need to know where the scope starts and scope ends.
Yes.
Right? For example, taking on the analogy of solar. Today, we do not have a viable mechanism to recycle electronic waste. Solar waste is one of the biggest issue. So if you say solar is great, let's put so many deep tech solutions there, but then what happens where do you look at? Where is your boundary? What happens? And I think that's where I'm a bit cautious, and I think it's also important to give that perspective very clearly, where we are starting, where we are ending, and also that is also a part of the innovation life cycle. Hey, you know what? There is a market. There's a market for solar panel recycling, because we did massive assessment of 20 years of solar in many countries, and you say there's a great opportunity.
See, that's what I see. What I see this, and I've always been a big believer in cradle-to-cradle sustainability from product. If you think about it from product initiation, then you're thinking about it in all the right ways and how to reuse things. But I also say this is a challenge for governments and other bodies saying, hey, we are going to have these trade-offs. We don't have a way to recycle. This is an opportunity for our startup companies to think about how to do this. There's companies that are looking at lithium extraction instead of worrying about the competition with where to get lithium from different sources around the earth and all the challenges of doing that. How about recycling our lithium that we have, doing the extraction of the lithium from all the batteries that we're just throwing away right now? Exactly. So I mean, these are opportunities. We need to think about these challenges not only as ways to conserve things, but to create abundance. And so these challenges are here for the startups and the technologies to be able to change the way that we think and have the future. So I look at it as a rich ground for opportunities.
I really like this point because it kind of leads me to this kind of regulation, governmental topic, yeah, that collaboration is needed here in order kind of to stimulate solving those challenges. And I think the policy making should be in place, and the regulation could think similar way. So do you agree with that? Do you see any kind of developments within this, Ozgur?
Yep. I would like to give an example. That is not directly related with solar panel or maybe deep tech in a precise way, but maybe it will give an idea about what we have lived through. About 10 years ago, we discovered, as a startup, we discovered the problem of unmatching taxation and the invoicing in Turkey. And then we worked on a solution. We went to the public bodies, explained that that can be possible to integrate these two different worlds with banks and with the tax authority into a simple processing center with many devices on the field. And we did it. We worked on the law, we worked on the regulations together with them. They wrote the regulations, but with our insights as a startup and some other public bodies. And then with law and the technology, we worked together and implemented it in 2 years. In the end of the first year, it was processing 9 million transactions per day from the field, POS devices, to the taxation authority simultaneously. from start. So this might give a hint about startups to work together with the regulatory authorities about the new things, explaining the new things, together with them, working on the law. Might be.
Hopefully we can come up with something like this. Let's say we have 1.5 minutes, so let's say anything that you see as a future trend developing in the topic that we have just discussed. One sentence from each of you.
I think that we went too much into the regulations because I believe in common sense. And what just was discussed by my colleagues in panel, it's really common sense, and it brings up importance of the early stage supporting system, as you, Ilona, doing, as Beamline, where we are. When we talk about the impact and we talk about the holistic approach, I'm sorry for this again, a little bit romantic, but it's also super important is education, and education, the common education for everyone. So the regulators do understand numbers and a little bit of physics, and physics do understand a little bit another numbers and a little bit of politics. And then commonly, I hope we can find it's the normal way and the opportunities, and we'll solve them, the challenges.
I mean, I will build upon what she said. Common sense is the most uncommon thing in today's world.
But let's keep on
So
it, please.
I would not bet on that, but I would say, I mean, this is something deep, and this is for deep tech probably right to say this. I think we should empower individuals and companies from going from a point of opinions and ideas to gaining perspectives. Gaining perspectives means gaining views from different stakeholder groups and gaining understanding of what their product could be in the marketplace, what their value could be in the marketplace, what impact it could create. But gaining perspective is a very key aspect because it can address blind spot, both the known unknowns and unknown unknowns. I'll stop there.
Barbara? I say open up these challenges to inspire our human capital. And what I mean by that is that the ideas in the solution space oftentimes just need to understand where the opportunities could be and where their ideas could fit and make a difference. And to be more open to looking at technology and solutions that are very, I would say, non-traditional or not even necessarily based on slower academic scientific research, but maybe out-of-the-box thinking that really creates substantial change. So if we actually can articulate the problems, the challenges, and then put the funding out there for the entrepreneurs and the inventors to come in and really think about new ways of doing things, and then being able to have the capital markets help mature those ideas so that they can actually receive that strategic capital, we can very quickly look at creating a better future.
Ozgur?
I'm with Barbara. That's clearly stated over there. Just one more word. Challenges are good for startups. And those startups are much more agile than the corporates. But startups in deep tech should work together with corporates and the governments, in alignment closely to move that, to make that agility as a success. It's a success. So that's the point we need to be concentrating on.
I agree.
On that very note, we will close our panel. Thank you so much for this productive
Thank you very
discussion.
much.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you to Ozgur, Barbara, Krishna, Jana, and Ilona for the wonderful panel discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you.